Tá fáidir óg go dtí Old School Manud. You're very, very welcome to our CEO Information Evening and the session around transition to college and the CEO process. My name is John McGinnity, Admissions Officer Assistant Registrar here at the University, and I'm joined by my colleague Judith Caffrey, who's the Admissions Office Communications Officer. We're just allowing people to come into the event at the moment, and for the next, say, minute or so, we'll just give people a chance to come in, and then we'll start in the next minute or two. Thank you. So good evening, everybody. Tá fáidir óg go dtí Old School Manud. Donna College Specialta is in the whole. It's lovely that you're able to join us, albeit virtually, this evening. We're joined by my colleague Judith Caffrey, who's the University's Admissions Office Communications Officer, and also by Hira Khan, who's a student of the University. And I think if we're having a transition to college presentation, it's very, very important to get the student perspective. And Hira is a student in our law department and is studying the LLB law program and is currently on an internship. So later on, we'll hear from Hira about, I suppose, her experience of being a student at the university. Importantly, the sense of that transition from school into college and that perspective. Just in terms of the way we're going to run this evening is, please, it's an evening for yourself. So if you have any questions at all, please pop them into the chat box. And we'll take questions. We maybe answer them as we go along. We may pause once or twice in the presentation to take a couple of questions. Importantly, before we finish, we'll try to get through all of the questions that you might have, because really it's a session for yourself. We'll try and finish up by about 7:45, and there is another repeat of this session then at 8 o'clock. But we're just conscious that there's other webinars also happening simultaneously later on. So up to you, and in terms of have a look at the schedule and maybe attend the one that you feel is right for you. So without further ado, let's just follow through. I hope you can see the presentation, the slides here, okay? This presentation will be up on our CEO website on the hub in the next few days. So don't worry about trying to get everything down. In fairness, this webinar will be recorded and will be available for you in the coming days. So importantly, there's a whole aspect of transitions in life. And one of the important transitions was the transition that you made from going on from, say, even early childhood into primary education, then moving on from primary education into secondary education. And you may this evening be joining us as a parent or a student, a Leaving Certificate student or a QQI or mature student. But the important thing is around transitions. And they say in life, transitions are very, very important. They're filled both in the one hand with a sense of expectation, a sense of hope and joy, and a sense of something new and an adventure. but also there's a sense sometimes of a nervousness, or indeed a sense of, how will this go? Will it be okay? And so it's very, very natural at the moment to think about, I'm applying for college. What's the whole process and the transition piece that will happen? So just a way in terms of just a quick summary of the presentation, there'll be the aspect of going to college and why go to college. The aspect in some way of the differences between school and university. We're very, very strong here at Maynooth University to encourage you to research and to be sure that this is the right program for you. And we'll talk a little bit shortly around what's called an interest inventory, the sense of getting to know yourself and being self-aware so that you actually do the program that you feel, yes, this is the right one for me. I suppose Maynooth University is very proud to say that we have about 3,500 students join us each year. Many of those students are coming from school leaving certificate examinations, but we do have about 10% of our students coming in as mature students and 10% coming through the QQI framework. And so that's very, very important, that whole aspect of transfer. And we'll talk about that. And then I think for yourself this evening, one of the things that we really want to focus on is the aspect of CAO, the process, the rules, how does it involve? And I suppose to assure you that this time in September, in 9 months' time, that you feel this has really worked for me and it has gone well. So that's really where we want to go. And to reinforce again and emphasize the aspect of questions. So if you have any questions at all, please just pop them into the chat and we'll take them as we go. One of the things I just say about university and college is that there's a sense of developing as a person. So one of the things that you'll find is that at Maynooth University, you'll be able to say, well, this is the course, this is the college that I want to be in. This is in sense, this is where I really, really want. And in fact, this is the subject, or it may be two subjects that I really want to study together. It's called that interdisciplinarity. But one of the things we'd be saying is that whereas at Leaving Cert, or if you're doing other school leaving exams, you might be taking a range of subjects, you're suddenly being able to concentrate and focus on one or two of those subjects, ones that you feel is right for you and that you have a passion for. And the other thing we'd say about Maynooth is the sense of we have over 150 different clubs and societies. And it might be that you're a person who's not involved in lots of different societies and debates and drama and so on in the school or sport. But what you find is you find kindred spirits at Maynooth University, because as a campus, it's a fantastic community. And, it's a very friendly and approachable campus. So in a way, it's very easy to make friends. So quite quickly, you'll join a society and a club that really you find at home in. And then I just want to mention about Maynooth University, and something we're very proud of is the connections that we have right across the world in terms of top universities that we're partnered with. And so students might come to us and decide in third year to go abroad for a year. Now, one of the things that we like to say is that each student that comes to us, if you decide you wanted an international experience, we have a whole team of colleagues who are in the international office who will support you in that. But we have as many people going out on placement or indeed internships. And we'll hear from our colleague Hira Khan later on about her experiences working as a student intern at the moment. And then finally, I just want to mention here about, you might be saying, is it worth it? Or, going to college, will I get a benefit? And what we find is that benefit comes to you in two ways. The first way is, and depends what motivates you or what matters. So one of the things is that what we find is that in terms of our labor economists would find that there's about a 15% premium for every minute, for every hour of the rest of your working life that you will get as a return, a financial return from the investment you put in your third level education. But importantly, what we find is that through having a third level qualification, that your trajectory in terms of your work progression and promotion and so on is improved by having a college qualification. And also the jobs that you tend to work in are jobs that you'd be much more job satisfied in. So we would be a firm believer, that sense of the transformational effect that would come from having a higher education and experience, say, Maynooth University, that in terms of a progression, in terms of a return to yourself, it's worth every minute that you're putting into your exams at the moment, or as a parent, that's to reassure that there's a benefit in that. One of the things just to mention, I think it's just important to say, is the element around when you look at the changes that take place in terms of the college experience. yes, a number of things happen. So one of the things is the whole aspect of school size, moving from that to university. Our current scale is 15,000 students. So we've about 15,000 students who join us here each day. Obviously, at the moment with COVID, we've less than that. But in a way, when you think about it as a community, as a campus community, it's a significant campus community whereby, yes, it's a larger scale. Our lectures, we have groups of 25 in, say, critical skills, but we also have groups of 250 students in a lecture, and that could be 10 times the size of the class size that you leave in your school in May. And then the other thing that happens is a whole sense of changes in terminology. So you hear for the first time a sense of semesters, which is where we just divide the year up into two. Semester 1 up until January, semester 2 from end of January till May. You then hear modules whereby you're taught in particular aspects of a subject. And the wonderful thing at Maynooth is that you're assessed every 12 weeks. So when you take that material and are assessed on it, you move on to new material in the next semester. And so it's not like the Leaving Cert where you actually have to have 2 years of learning that is then examined in one big bang exam. What you find is through continuous assessment and more regular assessments and exams, it's a much nicer way to learn. And then finally, I just want to mention around the independence and flexibility. One of the great things here at Maynooth is the choice, and most of our first year students have 4 weeks at the beginning of first year to decide on their subjects. Students then going into second year would have normally 2 weeks to decide on the subjects. So it's something we're very proud of, is the arrangements that we have that allows students spend time making sure these are the subjects that you wish to do. So, okay, at registration, you'll say, these are the subjects I think I might wish to do. But for instance, in the arts faculty, there are 32 separate subjects. So you can basically move around and sit in various subjects until you decide what's right for me. I mentioned earlier on about the importance of research. And one of the things that we'd like is that for each student, and I'm conscious sometimes a student might say, I'm not sure what I wish to do. But what we'll be saying is absolutely check in with your guidance counselor, sit down with them, work through perhaps the psychometric or inventory test that you did, the aspect of your own personality, the aspect of your interests, the various subjects that you're enjoying, the aspects of the aptitudes that you have. So there's a whole range of things there. And when you bring them together, it's giving you an indication as to the right course for you and the right career. And obviously, we also would wish you to talk to our students, and we have a UniBuddy chat where you can connect in with our students, but talk to people who are doing the job and people and ask them about what are the things that they love about their job, but similarly, what are the things that they don't like. So on a Monday morning, what are the things that they don't like about their job? So absolutely, we'd be saying, do that due diligence, check out the website. Here at Maynooth University, we have 3,000 of our modules up, all of the details of all of our programs. So for every single CAO code and course code that you may have interest in, you can drill down and look, what would I be studying in semester 1 in first year, semester 2, then going into second year. So right through the entire program, you can look and see what are the subjects and modules I'll be doing in each semester. How will they be taught? How will they be examined? What way? Is it lectures? Is it assessments? Is it tutorials? Is it labs? And indeed, is it continuous assessment? And then on the Maynooth University Course Finder as well, actually the timetable is up there as well. So all of that is available at your fingertips. There are a number of free resources that's available to you. So as a parent or guardian, as a mature student or QQI or Leaving Certificate, or if you're coming into us from a European country or outside the EU or from the UK or Northern Ireland, you're very, very welcome. But one of the things just to say is that there's a wealth of resources at your fingertips that are free resources. So the national database of courses at Qualifax, studentfinance.ie gives you a sense of the SUSI grants. So there is funding available that you may be able to access. Accesscollege.ie has information on the Here and There program in terms of concessions on points. If, for instance, that you might have a disability that has impacted on your learning, if, for instance, you've come from a socioeconomic disadvantaged background, and in fairness, Maynooth University would step in to give you some funding to support your studies here with us. And the other website I just want to mention is Careers Portal. So Qualifax and Careers Portal are fantastic resources that allow you have a look and filter across the number of courses, and then look inside and look at entry requirements, points, special program requirements and any subjects that you might be required to have. So just in terms of pathways to college, to give you that sense, Maynooth, we're very strong in terms of giving a sense whereby students can progress to us. And when we look at it, here is the national framework of qualifications. And this is what's known as the fan diagram. And if we look at the bottom left-hand side there, you see level 1 on the fan diagram, which is primary certificate. And on the right-hand side, you'd see level 10 there, which is the PhD, the doctorate. Now, one of the things just to mention is that at leaving certificate level, it's level 5. A QQI, College of Further Education qualification, is normally also level 5. The Leaving Cert itself spans level 4 and 5. Notionally, a student doing a range of ordinary level subjects would be level 4, higher level subjects would be level 5. And then you're progressing on. And the CEO, as you can see here, basically the CEO has the sense whereby you can actually, apologies, I'll just move up. The CEO picks up at level 6, which are 2-year higher certificate courses, level 7, which are ordinary degrees, level 7, and those courses, the 2-year higher certificate, the 3-year ordinary degree at level 7, are actually on one list within the CAO. And then on terms of another list, there's a level 8, which is the honours degree programs, which are the programs that are offered by Maynooth University, and they're at level 8 on the framework of qualifications. And they would give you the credentials if you wanted to go on and do either postgraduate studies or any professional education afterwards. Now, level 9 then is postgraduate diploma or indeed masters, which would be a 1-year top up, or it might be that you're progressing and transferring into a different discipline. It might be you've done a degree in business, but then want to do computing as a postgraduate, as a conversion course. Or indeed then if you want to go on and do a PhD, if you're really interested in a particular area, and that would be 4 years full-time or 6 years part-time. So just to recap again, the CEO though is on the level 6 and 7 on one list of choices, and level 8 is a separate list of 10 choices on a separate list. So then moving on from that, then I just want to look at basically the aspect here around progression. And when you can see the sense whereby, if you take here at Maynooth, we have about 3,500 students, but about 300 of those students would be coming through the QQI route, where they're going to maybe Dunboyne College of Further Education, or maybe a College of Further Education in the Midlands or in the Southeast or Southwest, and then progressing to Maynooth here using the QQI as their progression pathway. We also have students who are transferring to us from technological universities or institutes of technology, may have done 1 or 2 years and then progress. Or indeed, we have students who are joining us straight from the Leaving Cert, or in fairness, qualifications from all over the world. So one of the things we'll be saying is, it might take you sometimes a bit longer to get a place at Maynooth through a progression pathway, but we would have a welcome on the mat in terms of transfers, and we're very, very strong to create the opportunities to give you the choice of coming to us. Now, you might say that that's all very well and good, John, but how many people apply, and what's the competition like to get a place at Maynooth and to get a place in terms of the CEO program? So when we look here, we see that in the current year, that's 2021, the one that's just gone by, over 85,000 people applied. And you might say that seems very high, but what it is that a large number of people apply, perhaps who've already been to college and are reapplying, or they're doing a College of Further Education course, or in fact, they're applying from another country. So often people think that the CEO is simply for leaving certificate students in Ireland, but not at all. It's a much broader family than that. And one of the things I'd be saying is that when you look at it, about 50,000 people got a place on the CEO, between 43,000 at the level 8 listings, and about 7,000 almost on the level 6, 7. So there's a good chance of getting a place. Now, when you add in the College of Further Education places along with CEO places, there's almost a place for every single student in the country who wants to go on and do further study afterwards at further or higher education. It's not the case, though, that we can say that you'll absolutely be guaranteed your number one choice, because there is a competitive element. We talk about that in a moment. And when we look at it here, you can see that there's a sort of a spread whereby a significant number of people apply. And first indications at this stage would be that the same, something similar will be applying again for 2022 admission. Now, I just want to mention here then about the CAO, which actually opened in November. We'd be encouraging you to apply before next Thursday. That's tomorrow night week at 5 p.m. And the reason for that is that it's a discounted application rate to apply to the CAO. And you might say, well, I don't know all my choices, but you can certainly make the application to the CAO, let the CEO know you exist and you're making an application, and then you can actually populate your courses right up until the 1st of February without any cost at all. If you do leave it and not apply before next Thursday, you then pay the higher fee, which is €45, up until 5 p.m. on the 1st of February. So we'd strongly be recommending to you to apply before the 20th of January at 5 p.m. for the discounted rate, the €30. One of the things I just want to mention as well is that there's about 150 courses in the CAO which are restricted. So here at Maynooth, the music degree, the community and youth work degree, that's MH 103 and MH 116, both of those are restricted, and there'll be assessments during spring. And so they have to be on your CAO before the 1st of February. And so when you see restricted on the digital version of the CAO handbook, just bear in mind that they actually have to be applied for before the 1st of February. Now, the CAO is very conscious of the timelines for a leaving certificate student or somebody doing their final school leaving exams, perhaps in another country. And there's a whole sense of mock exams and orals that are taking place. And so the CAO kind of closes down to allow that to take place. And then it opens up again on the 5th of May for changes of mind. So a student can change their mind again as often as they wish, right up until the 1st of July. So one of the things we'll be saying to you is absolutely just be conscious that you can make a change of mind of your choices up until the 1st of July. We would be conscious that there's a set of requirements here to get a place on a course if you're under 23. And so there are matriculation requirements, which would be normally a pass in English and a pass in Irish if you're applying on the basis of an Irish leaving certificate. Some of the courses then have course requirements. So if you wanted to do a science degree, for instance, you'd have to have a science subject in your school leaving examinations. And then there's points. So those are the various, like bricks in the wall, that you have to satisfy those to get a place at the university. And bear in mind, if there are any changes that happen, they are populated into the CAO website. So just keep an eye as the year goes by, because sometimes courses which are in the handbook get cancelled, or indeed it might be that they're not in the handbook and they're introduced by the college. So just keep an eye on that. So what I want to mention then is the whole aspect of the confidentiality of the CAO process. It's a very flexible, it's a very approachable system. What will happen will be you will get an application number when you apply, and that's an 8-digit number with the prefix 22. So it'll be something like 22 1 2 3 4 5 6, and that would be your CAO number. Separate to that, then you'll have a leaving cert number if you're doing the leaving certificate in 2022, and you'll be mentioning it's a 6-digit number that you'll be populating into the CAO file afterwards when you get your leaving cert number. So just to mention, that CAO number is private, and you'll get a password. And when you go to log on to the CAO, it'll be looking for your CAO number, your date of birth, and your password. But the wonderful thing about the CAO system, it's a kind of a portal that you're able to go in and actually change things as you go along. In terms of the CAO application form itself, I'd be recommending or be saying to you, put a lot of research into the courses that you wish to do before you make the application, and just to have that in place. In terms of the CAO, there's a demo application. So you can actually go onto the website and, in fact, just have a demo application before you do the real application. CEO will be looking for things, biographical details like your first name and other names in terms of sex, you're male or female, or you prefer not to say, and then also your address and all of those details. Importantly, when you complete an email address on the CEO, just make sure that's an email address that you continually check. So often, sometimes what can happen is a student might use an email, but only once for the CEO application and never review it again. So the email that you actually use for the CEO should be an email that you use and check regularly. Very, very important. And then the other thing is just to check that you are getting emails from the CEO and they're not going into spam. Now, when you're making the application to the CEO, it will verify your CEO and send you a code to check that it's working. And so in a sense, just be conscious that that email is the email that you should be checking all the time. when we look at it, then there's a sense whereby you're going to be an applicant, you're an applicant category. So it might be you're doing an Irish Leaving Certificate exam, which would be category 1 there, and it could be a previous leaving certificate. Very, very important to put those in, because it might be that you're depending on results from a previous year. So very, very important to give the CEO the detail of your leaving cert and the leaving cert numbers previously. It might be that you're doing other school leaving exams from different countries. It might be you're applying as a mature student. So when you tick the box as an applicant category, there'll be a drop-down list of questions that you'll complete. So it's very user-friendly, and you'll be able to submit all those details. Just obviously, you will be making the application fee and paying the application fee. And when that's done, then you'll be creating a password. And that's the password that you'll be using to check all of your details on the CEO. You'll be checking all of the courses and so on. And that's something that will be with you then for the rest of the year until the summertime when the offers are made. You'll be able to check all of that. So it's a really good system with the demo application option and the capacity to be able to go back in and check as you go. So this is the engine room of the CEO system. It's the part whereby it's the core of it. And here you be listing down on level 8 your 10 choices in the order of your genuine order of preference. That's the key message. And so it might be that you have 10 postcards. You're writing on each postcard the courses that you have an interest in, and then you're actually putting them on the kitchen table and moving them around until you're saying, this is the 10 courses in the order I want them. You're simply saying to yourself, what's the course I most want to be doing in the college I most want to be in? And that'll have a unique course code. So it could be MH101 for arts, or it could be MH001 for primary education, or MH201 for science, and so on. And you're listing those choices, and you're saying, if I just didn't get my first choice, my second is my next most important, and then my third. And sometimes a student might say, I only am interested in one course, and that's fair enough. But the risk is, if you don't get a place in that one course, you could miss out on other choices. And then on the level 7.6 list, which is a separate computer that manages all of these choices on level 7.6, you have the potential then of getting 2 offers. So similarly, you'll be looking at the level 7.6 list, and in the same way, saying, what's the course I most want to do? And then move on down from that, right down from number 1 to number 10. And sometimes what happens is a student might say, put a lot of effort of research into their 1, 2, 3, and then after that, it's relatively random. But please know that hundreds of people each year get their 10 choice. Hundreds of people get their 7 choice. And every single choice, the sequence matters so important. And then by the 1st of July, you literally have to put in your choices and make sure they're there before then. The wonderful thing about the CEO is they're going to be sending you details, checking in with you. There's a very, very important part in May where they send you a statement of application record. And that's in a sense saying, this is what we know about your application. Bear in mind, they're dealing with 85,000 people at that stage. So they're giving the responsibility to you to check that they have all of the right details for you. And so you have to just check you have the right courses in the right order, the right course codes. It may be that you've applied for an exemption because you may have dyslexia and you're making an application for exemption from the NUI, and that's populated in there. You're not studying Irish because you got an exemption and you've applied for the exemption through the NUI. So basically the CEO will correspond with you, send you the statement of record, and it's very, very important that you check that. Now, last year in 2021, a few hundred people didn't check their statement of record and kind of some of them missed out on an offer in September, then in August and September. So very, very important to check in May that you get the application statement of record and you checked everything on it. I'll pause there for a moment, Judith. I don't know if there was any questions that had come in, and that we might field 1 or 2 questions at all if there were at that stage.
Yes, indeed, John. Yeah. The first question that came in is probably the one you're going to address a little bit later anyway, and it's to do with the direction of the way the points will go for first years based on predicted grades last year and so on. So I think maybe you'll come to that in a little while. There's a question about what to fill in on the EU. It says the brief description section of the EU leaving exam in the application field. Do you know what will go in there?
For sure. What will happen there is when you tick the box to say you're an EU applicant, you'll be able to actually put in there the qualification that you have. It might be a German Abitur, a French baccalaureate, a European baccalaureate. So it'll be asking for the qualifications that you have. Now, very, very importantly, if you're submitting documentation then to the CEO, very, very important that you put your CEO number and your name on it when you submit it to the CEO, because the CEO will take that, your qualifications, and will load them up into the file. Now, at the office end of things, what happens is that if you're doing A levels or Leaving Certificate, those qualifications are automatically scored by the CEO processing computer in conjunction with Maynooth University. In the case of a qualification from another country, they're actually assessed manually. So what will happen will be, we will look at your grades, and there's a sort of a ready reckoner on the CEO website that you can look and see if I'm offering a European baccalaureate or international baccalaureate or another qualification. You can just check the website and see the details on that. We're not in a rush away this evening, so if you have any other questions just about that European piece, we can come back to it a bit later. And I think you're right there, Judith, what you were saying around the points and the expectations this year. I'll be showing that in a moment, and we can have a look at it. So thank you for that.
Okay.
Thanks, Judith. So just moving on, you might say in terms of points, how does it actually work? So what happens is we will take your best 6 subjects. It's scored round from the H1 to give you 100 points down to an 06 at the ordinary level, which would be 12 points. And you can see here when you look at it, that as you move up towards the various grades between ordinary and higher level, not only are you getting more points, but the differential is that little bit higher. So it could be between a H5 and a H4. You can see you're moving up 10 points there, then moving up to a H3 is 11 points, and so on. So there's a 12-point gap between a H1 and a H2 from 100 to 88. One of the things just to mention is if you present a honours maths at a H6 or better, so that's 40% or better, you attract a 25 points bonus. So we take your score, which might be a H6, 46, add 25 to it, that's giving us 71. So in a sense, that will be ranked then. So we will rank the subjects based on your points, and then we will take the top 6 subjects. So if your maths score following the adjustment for the maths bonus is one of your top 6, it'll be added in. If it's not, and that's very rare, it normally is, but if it's not, it wouldn't be added in, because sometimes people feel the bonus will always be added in, but not if you have other subjects above which are at higher points than the bonus, than the subject adjusted for the maths. So one of the things just to be saying to you is that obviously just be conscious of, although it might be you're doing 7 or 8 subjects, we will score your best 6, but we would still be encouraging you to, as well as you can in the 7 or 8 subjects, because when it comes to the Leaving Certificate, you just don't know how things will go. So it's best to do as well as you possibly can. So then again, to say, if you're doing a number of Leaving Certificates, maybe you're repeating the Leaving Cert, we will take the best single sitting. And so even though you can meet matriculation, the matriculation requirements for, say, particular subjects, that can be met over any number of years, but the actual score of points is a single year. Now, in terms of the points itself, so the points maximum you can get is the 625, which would be the 6 H1s plus the 25 points for the bonus maths. But just say the average points would be much less than that in a given year. And how the points are actually determined are the number of applicants there are for a particular course, the number of places that there are, and then how well do people do. And one of the things we just be conscious of is that you have to be careful, because sometimes you might find, well, here's a particular course in a particular college and the points seem to be much higher than here's another course in a particular college. But just look behind it, because it might be that college A is only offering 10 places in that course. College B is offering 100 places. So you have to really just have a look and see in relative terms the number of places. So you just can't assess the quality from the points. Basically look at the course for its own sake and is this the right course, and then proceed on that basis. And Judith mentioned there was a question around points and how do we think points will go in 2022. So if we look back in 2019, this was the spread of points in terms of the distribution, and it was sort of normally distributed here across the sense of a small number of people at the bottom and a small number of people at the top, and most people in the middle there. Sort of a normal distribution with most people between 300 and 399. And then in 2020, which was a year because when COVID struck, exams didn't take place and people got predicted grades, and the graph shifted slightly over to the right. So people got about 20 points on average across the country better off, with more people in the 400 to 499. And then when you compare 2019 and 2020, you can see here on the left-hand side, the blue 2019, orange 2020, you can see the shift and the higher grades that happened there. And then if we look in 2021, what you can see is that that pattern was enhanced again, because in 2021, last year, people got the benefit of either the best of their teacher expected grade or indeed their exam grade. And the computer algorithm got the best of both worlds. So people got higher results again. And so in a sense, the grade went up again. And so to answer the question specifically around what will it look like in 2022, it's very hard for us to say, because it'll depend in some way. The State Exams Commission will be working through the grades again. It may be the case that I know they've come out to say today that they really can't be working on the basis of predicted grades because of the issue that about a quarter of the cohort this year didn't do a junior certificate. And in the last couple of years, they used the junior certificate grades as a predictor for Leaving Cert performance. And they have about a quarter of the applicants of 2022 who didn't do the junior certificate. And so the State Exams Commission said it's going to be very difficult to have the same. So it may be that everybody is just taking the exam and there isn't predicted grades. And one might think that at that level, then it may be that the grades stay very similar to 2021, or maybe they go back towards 2020, or indeed back to 2019. It's always very hard to say. So nobody in the country can actually say for sure, because we won't know until August how it all pans out. Just to say the points went up by about 30 points this year because of the higher grades that people got. If it was the case that the points went back to 2020 levels, or distribution went back to 2020, points would probably just ease back, or indeed back to 2019. So what's happening is like a wave whereby if people are getting more and higher grades, points go up, and if people were getting less grades, points would fall. So all a student can do is the best that they can do. I just want to mention very briefly a couple of schemes. One is called the DARE scheme, the other is called the HERE scheme, the Disability Access Route to Education and the Higher Education Access Route. And Maynooth are very proud supporters of both schemes, and we offer a concession on points. You have to have over 300 points and be within 60 points of the cutoff. Now, what we have is a quota of places for each course, and we fill the places then based. So if the points were 450, we work and see, is there somebody at 449 who's here or there eligible, and then work down from that. And we can take any questions towards the end if there was questions on that. And then I just want to mention as well that the Maynooth University, we work closely with SUSI. So it might be that this is an aspect of being funded in terms of your higher education experience. On a broad terms, a family with income less than 50,000 in the tax year, 1st of January to 31st of December 2021, you would get funded by the state that would pay the student contribution charge, the 3,150, well, the 3,000 euro. And it might be that you get a maintenance grants again to help with accommodation. So just important to say that please check out the SUSI website. There's a really good Ready Reckoner calculator there that would help. And I just want to mention in terms of if family income is above 50,000, it may be that the family is actually paying 3,000 euro, and that's payable in 2 installments in September and January. Again, I just want to mention if a student repeats the year, so does first year and repeats again, you do have to pay the fees. So the fees could be 4,000 or so, and you'd have to pay then on the repeat year 4,000 plus the 3,000 student contribution. So it can be quite expensive. So obviously if a student left halfway through, they'd use up half of the free fees. So there's a very good scheme here in Ireland in terms of if you're an EU citizen in terms of funding that you can avail of. One of the things that we often hear about is accommodation at Maynooth. Are there apartments? And yes, we have about 1,200 student apartments on campus. And what happens each year now at the moment is when we make offers in round 1, we actually open up for bookings, and the bookings are normally made within a half an hour or an hour. So that's how the campus apartments are allocated. So very briefly then, just to say there's a whole aspect of strict order of preference, studying all your preferences carefully and being conscious of the application deadlines. Being conscious also of restricted courses. So if you're applying for music or community of youth work, have that in. And then checking the eligibility, that for each of the degrees that you're applying for, just check that you're presenting the right subject, and it might be at the right level. And it may require, you know, a H7 or a H4 or whatever, just to check for that as well. So very briefly, I just want to show you here an example of a student who's applied for 10 different choices on the CAO. And it's really just to show you how it actually works in practice. So you might say student points are in blue, and then the requirements are in orange. So when you look at it, you're saying, would the person get a place in the first choice? And unfortunately not. And then so on. But it might be when you look at each one, say the third preference here, the student has more points than the required points, the threshold. But equally, you could look at the other preferences again and find, isn't it the same for all of the others? But what actually happens in the CAO is that the CAO computer will actually give the student their third preference offer. And then what the CAO computer will do is delete all of the choices below that, because the CAO computer is saying, I'm giving the person the highest choice that they were entitled to. I've checked their points, I've checked their entry requirements, I've checked matriculation, I've checked their sub requirements, and that's the highest choice that they're entitled to. I'll now delete everything else because I'll get busy and look after everything, the next set of applicants. And it's the same for the level 8 list. Computer is working on that basis, and also the same process for the level 7/6 list on the same basis. So it's so important to have your choices in your genuine order of preference. And so very briefly, I'll be saying, in terms of be aspirational, saying, what's the course I most want to do? That should be your number one. It may be that you say, well, the one course I really want, I'll never get the points for, I'll put it down 4 or 5, but you could do better in your Leaving Cert than you expected. So very important to put it number one if that's the course you most want to do. And then more realistic courses in the middle, and then banker courses towards the bottom. So as a broad approach, this is possibly a good way to look at it, just to make sure that you're putting the courses that you most want at the top. And then just finally, just to wrap up in terms of one of the things just to say is that you can always move up in the CAO, but never down, because the system will allow you move up. And say in round 1, you might get offered your third preference on your level 8 list, your third preference on your level 7/6, but you can only accept one of those, and you'll have about a week in round 1 to accept that place. If, for instance, the colleges haven't filled all their places, they will make more offers in round 2, points might fall, and you might move up to your second preference or your first preference. You're under no obligation to move because you can stick with the course that you've accepted, but you can also move up if you wish by accepting the new course. And if you do, the college that you were previously in would be advised that you've moved because the CEO is keeping a track of all of that. Sometimes what happens is a student might get their third preference or their fourth preference and decide, I'm not going to accept this, I'll get a higher one in the next round. You have to be careful, because it may be that you don't get a higher preference and you can't go back and say to the CEO, can I have that offer back? Because that place has gone to somebody else. So you really need to treat every offer as if it was your last. And then I know random selection was in play, not at Maynooth University last year, but what can happen sometimes is everybody maybe above, say there's 100 places on the course and 90 people have 400 points or more, and then there's 10 places left. And at 399, there's 20 people, but only 10 places available. The computer goes into the 399 group and picks out 10 people at random. Now, everybody in 400 points and above gets the place, but people on the 399, 10 of the 20 would be randomly selected. And often colleges will go back and try and offer out, if they can, the places, but that's where random selection comes along. And then I just want to mention available places. So for instance, it might be that there are places unfilled in colleges, and you can go back in as a CEO applicant. You don't have to pay any more money, or you can enter the CEO at that stage and make an application in August for one of the available places. Often people are wondering about appeals. Can I appeal? And yes, you can have a look at the script and actually make an appeal. And each year, thousands of people make an appeal to the State Exams Commission. And each year, about 1 in 4 people get an upgrade. And what we do here at Maynooth is we look at it again and see, would you have been entitled to a place if you had got the right scores? And if so, we make good on that. And more often than not, you'll be able to start immediately. Sometimes that only comes out way after term has started, and maybe that we'd have to defer your place. And I just want to mention finally the deferrals piece, whereby each year here at Maynooth, we have about 250 to 300 people who defer the place and come back to us the following year. So it's like a revolving door. And certainly at Maynooth here, we would welcome, if you're thinking about, we'd be saying to you, apply this year and then defer the place, rather than if you think you're going to wait until 2023 to start college, make the application in 2022 and then defer it out until 2023, because the points could be going up next year. So it's wise to do that. And I just want to mention a couple of things in terms of Maynooth and supports, very, very strong in terms of counselling and student services. One of the things very strong in Maynooth is around the student-centred piece. Everything we do is for you as a student. And there's a whole range of different services in the student services dimension, but also in the whole aspect of teaching and learning in terms of academic advisory office. So in that transition, we're there to support you. We are hoping to have our open day on campus in April, depending on the COVID trajectory numbers and so on. Certainly in June as well, we're hoping to be on campus again. We'd have to take public advice at that time. But there's a range of opportunities to connect in with us, and we'd love you to keep connecting with us. This evening, but also right throughout the year, our student ambassadors are actually online. So if you wanted to connect in and had any questions, you can certainly do that through the MU Unibuddy scenario. And in fact, we have a lot of students who connect in for us all that time. I'm going to stop here at this point. I'm going to take down my slides and introduce Hira Khan, who'll talk to you now about her own student experiences. Over to you, Hira.
Thank you, John. Hi guys, my name is Hira Khan and I am a third year LLB student here at Maynooth University. LLB is single major law, and currently I'm on placement at a corporate law firm here in Dublin. My transition from secondary school to college was a pretty big transition, and not only because I was moving halfway across the country. I had done my primary schooling and my secondary in Galway actually, and suddenly I was moving from the west to the east, and as well as that, I didn't know anyone coming into Maynooth. There was no person in my class who was going to Maynooth, and as well as that, I had not studied law before because law isn't a leaving cert subject that is offered. And I spent actually a large part of that wondering and being nervous about what life would be like at Maynooth. Would I fit in? Would I make any friends? Would I be walking into lectures alone? Like, how would I make friends? And I spent all of that time being nervous and, being scared about joining university. And if there's one thing that I would say to myself now and say to you guys is that it's normal to be nervous, but you shouldn't be, because after being at Maynooth for the last 3 years, I can say that the atmosphere and the environment in Maynooth is warm, it's lively, and it's vibrant. Maynooth University is, I think, one of those rare places where you can really find a home away from home. It's one of those rare places where if you are standing outside a lecture hall and you're not sure if this is your lecture hall, someone will stop you and ask you, like, are you okay? Do you know where you're going? You can walk up to anyone at any time and ask them, and they will make the time to help you out. And if not, they'll direct you to someone who can help you out. A big part of being at Maynooth University and studying at Maynooth University is the student life. I think it's one of those things that Maynooth University does not compromise on. We have a large array of clubs and societies that you can join, and this is how I actually made friends and I enhanced my student experience. I joined at the Law Society as a rep, and through that I kind of gained friends, but I also met people who were in different courses, who were older than me, and got advice from them. This also helped me with my confidence. I was pretty shy coming into Maynooth, and since then I have gained a large amount of confidence and self-esteem. So if you're worried about your transition from secondary school to university, don't be. That should be at the bottom of your list coming into Maynooth University, because there is ample opportunity for you to meet people, and everyone is really, really nice and helpful. I can also say that since being at Maynooth University, I have had the chance to study, you know, being on campus and then having the shift to being online. And this main skill that I've learned through that is independence and initiative. And this is something that has carried over and has actually helped me with my placement. I've learned to, you know, reach out to people and gain confidence and communication skills that way. So your time at Maynooth is valuable if you make it valuable. There is a lot of opportunity for you to enhance your skills and your student life. There is clubs and societies from based on your course to based on hobbies. You can join the tea society and have tea with someone once a week and just chat to them that way. Or you can, you know, join the law society, for example, and do MOOC competitions and enhance your academic life as well. So from the perspective of someone who was really nervous coming into Maynooth and has now only just excelled at Maynooth, I can tell you that you guys are going to have a great time here. And I really do hope that you choose Maynooth University. That was just a brief kind of overview and my own perspective of student life here. But if you have any specific questions, I'm more than happy to take them. But yeah, thank you.
Here, that was lovely, and thank you for that. And so Judith, I think you might have one or two questions there, which I know you were going to answer live. Up to you entirely now.
Yeah, no, John, I just was going to defer to your good self about that.
Sure.
There's a student there who's interested in studying here, but has a British passport and has been living in Ireland for the last 10 years. So I guess it's quite a specific question about nationality.
Sure.
And then there's a question about the IB, the International Baccalaureate. So they're both quite specific questions. But
Lovely, Judith. I think what will happen in the CAO is it'll ask you for your place of birth and then also your citizenship. So you just answer that by saying, my place of birth was, you know, Britain, my citizenship is British or Irish. And so the CAO application process will ask those two questions. And so absolutely put that in. And I think just to mention to you that there isn't a reciprocal arrangement now across Britain and Ireland in terms of nothing changing post-Brexit, so in terms of fees and everything. But I'm conscious you've been in the country for 10 years, but just to reassure you that there's been no change in the fees arrangements at all. The other thing then is the IB, and there is on the CAO website, there's a set of what are called student resources. So if you go into these student resources, you can actually just click on IB and it gives you an explanation as to how it's calculated. So we look at the higher level and the subsidiary level subjects, and we count up your points, and then we have a conversion scale across. So I know the 45 is the maximum you can get on the IB, but we simply take on a sort of pro rata basis a comparison between 45 to 625 and have a ready reckoner on that. So we will absolutely take all of your IB and you will be scored like the Leaving Cert student at that time. Thanks, Judith.
Just one final question, John, from I hope Rebecca's still there. She asked at the start, and it was about
Sure.
accommodation on campus. When does it open? And also, if a person is 17 for the first 3 months of college, does that mean that they can't stay on campus? So I guess
no, they should be able to, but I'm slightly nervous in the sense it's going to be our accommodation. So if you drop a note to our accommodation colleagues, but you know, we have about a quarter of our students each year joining us less than 18. So I don't think there's an issue here, but certainly just drop an email to our colleagues in residence office and they'll come back to you. There was another question that had come in there, Judy, you probably saw, whereby somebody said, when will the apartments allocation happen?
Yeah,
it has happened after round one for the last 2 years, and it's likely to happen again like that in 2022. So thank you for that. I'm conscious of time, folks, and apologies because there's a new set of sessions that are happening at 8 o'clock. So we may draw the session here to a close. We may play out with the new building on campus, which will take a couple of minutes just to run. And you'd be more than welcome to join the three of us again at 8 o'clock, but obviously just have a look at the website and be able to move to another session. So Jude, if it's okay, I think we'll finish up and say thanks to yourself, thanks to Ira, and wish everybody all the best for the coming year. And I'm just going to play out. We have a new building that's coming in the next couple of months, and we just play out with that. So that's going to play now.